Hello, welcome back to another episode of my Garage Podcast. In this episode, I'm going to be going over some life updates, primarily, or not primarily, secondarily. Uh, and then next, I'll be going over the main focus of this podcast, which is what is an IPO and what does it mean for a company to go public. First, I just want to start with some life updates, just kind of talk about I guess why I decided not to upload for like 2 weeks. Well, basically, I just started summer vacation, and I would say it's been treating me very nicely. So it's like it was really hard to kind of do work because these like past 2 years, I haven't really taken like a serious like huge break like I am right now. So it did take some time to get used to like having this much time uh and also because I wanted to um shoot I also wanted to actually take a break and not just like um actually enjoy sorry, there's just dust on this table I was just cleaning off. I just wanted to enjoy my break. I just kind of I've mostly just been doing nothing. I've been playing games with my friends. I've been trying to go to the gym as often as I can. These past like 3 weeks, I've gone like 3 times a week, and haven't done that in a while. It's not really this semester was kind of hard because I was focusing a lot on just trying to maintain my grades and kind of hanging out with friends more or playing game more, fr- playing a lot more games with my friends and just trying to I guess be as social as I possibly can and just kind of enjoying it because in like 2 months I think yeah technically in 2 months 2.5 I'm leaving. That's been a little nerve-wracking, but it's still pretty cool I guess that I'm leaving, and I've just been getting things ready for school. I've just been trying to I have this transfer module that I need to complete so I can register for orientation. And once I actually register for orientation and go to it, I can actually I get priority registration for my classes, and so that's kind of been important. Um, last last Thursday, like 2 days ago, because I'm filming this on Saturday, and I think I'm gonna upload this on Sunday. On Thursday, I went to a Dodgers game and it was the One Piece night. I actually really enjoy One Piece. I kind of taken a break, um, and I'm not caught up fully, but it's still a good show. But sometimes it does get a little boring. But or there's certain times where it's just kind of slow, and I'd much rather watch some other things. But overall, I still really enjoy the show. It was kind of crazy when I went because my cousin and he invited me to go to the One Piece Night Dodgers game because we're both, or our family are really big Dodgers fans, and I haven't been to the Dodgers game in like before this. I don't think maybe I was like a sophomore or I was still in high school when the last time I went, and that's probably like 3 or 4 years ago when I went, and it has to be kind of rambling, but it has to be at least 2 years. And it was pretty fun to go watch the Dodgers. At first, I was a little worried because Roki Sasaki, or yeah, he was the first pitcher. I could tell he's really good, but there's certain times where he just gets in his head, and it's really hard to get past that. And it just kind of screws him. And I just think he kind of needs to develop more as a player because he's still pretty young, and but I still see him doing really good things. Yeah, and so it the first like I think 4 innings, it was 6-0. The Dodgers couldn't do much, and I was kind of nervous. But then when they switched out Roki to somebody else, the Dodgers started to win. They started to catch back up, and at the end of the night, it was 12-6, where in like the first like 3 innings it was 6-0, and the Dodgers won. And at the end they had a light show and it was pretty crazy. But the craziest part about it was just kind of the line to get in, because people were literally camping out. My cousin and I don't know if I said this yet, but my cousin and I, we got there at 12, and even then it was still crazy. There's still a lot of people there. Um, it was crazy because a lot of people just came to resell the card and just get the card and that, not really that, and just mainly the card just to resell it, because now it's like $1,200, which is insane. And it when we were waiting in line, there was people like scalpers, and just honestly, I just feel kind of like just like really a lot of scumbags, and just people that had, I don't know, like reselling cards uh is their main source of income. I felt like there's a guy that came from New York just to for one day just to get this card with 6 of his friends, and he's just gonna get the cards off of his friends and just like resell it, and it's just a whole thing. People coming all over the country just to watch it, and then he can't even care about baseball or the Dodgers, and um, it was kind of sucked. But once they finally opened the gate, my cousin and I, we like ran to the front. And we ran past a whole bunch of people, and we were like one of the very first people to get the card. And it was crazy because as soon as I got it, I was just like freaking out about it, because I already knew how much it was, and at the end of the day, at the end of the game, when people were leaving the stadium, there was just a whole bunch of people standing around, just like saying, "I'll buy your cards off of you," and it was um, just really bad. But overall, it was still a fun experience to go watch the Dodgers get a card and just enjoy I guess the ambiance, I guess, uh, would be a word I would use to describe it. Um, and yeah, it was still fun. Next, I want to talk about why I haven't been posting. These I planned, or originally um, the week before, or the week I was supposed to upload, it was my finals, so it was kind of really hard to like focus on this, because it's still really fun to do this, and I find some importance of it, but compared to schoolwork where there's actual deadlines, it's a lot harder for me to get started, and I really didn't find like a point, or I didn't find like the need to actually be doing this. So I've prioritized my finals over this, and so that's why I didn't upload. And then in these 2 weeks that I didn't upload, or 2 or 3 weeks that I didn't upload, it was just really hard to get motivation to start doing my podcast, because I've just been enjoying my break, and just been trying to do as much as I can while I'm here. Um, and I think my plan for the upcoming break is I might post consistently, or I might take a break. Like, there might be weeks where I just like post every week or something like that, or there might be a week where I just might not do anything, and I'll try to, at the end of each video, I'll try to keep, uh, I guess, my YouTube channel updated about my current status and what I plan to do for the upcoming week. So that's what I have to focus on, I guess, during the week. And also, I'm trying to do some other things, because I've set goals for myself for the end of the summer, like learn, because as you can see in the background, there's like a drum set. And I didn't get to, during school year, I don't get to practice as much as I want to. And I set goals for myself to like get a job, and when I go golfing, to like break 100, because the best I've got is a 110. I'm still pretty new to golf, so I feel for me it's pretty good, but I still have ways to go. And so that's one of my goals. Another goal is to get a job. Another goal is to, I guess, upload as much as I can for this. And they're kind of loose goals. I don't really have a set date for them, but they're just things I want to accomplish over the summer. Um, and for this topic, this video, it was supposed to be posted the week of finals, but I never got to it because I was focusing on finals more. So that's why this video never got uploaded. And yeah, like I said, like it's just really hard to when there's like no set deadline, or I don't ever set a deadline for it. It's just really hard to do things. So that's why it was really hard to start this. But once I like created a deadline in my head, it just like really helps. And just kind of having set deadlines for everything, it helps me get started on work a lot easier. Like say I get home at like 3, and I'm like, oh, at after I eat at like 5, I'll start doing work or something like that. And so that's how like deadlines have been helping me. And sometimes it's just hard because with this next topic I want to get into, I just want to get into some philosophy things because a lot of things have been in my mind these past like 3 weeks that I just want to get out. I just have learned to just let things go, or I'm still trying and still learning what it means to let things go. But like for example, when a negative thought occurs or thought that I just don't want to have happens, I try my hardest not to interact with it. Like it sounds harder than it is. Like for example, when something comes up where I call myself dumb or insult myself, I just let that thought go. And it it sounds easy to do, but it's hard to accomplish. Because what I mean by this is like I don't react to that voice. Like when I hear that thought where it's like I'm stupid, or like I'm, for example, I say like I'm stupid in my head, or I just mess up and then I start to blame myself. I just don't try to defend it. I just try to sit with that feeling of where it's like I feel like anxious, or I feel responsible, or I feel worried about something. I hear that thought, and as soon as I notice it, I stop defending it. I stop trying um, to reason it. And I guess the reason for this is because like it those thoughts that pop into my mind where it's like something awkward or something that I just don't want to deal with. I feel like it isn't me. It's how do I say this? Um, hmm, it's it's like somebody else. It's from things I hear and just responding to what should be normal. But everybody has their own way of going through things, and as long as I learn from it and I just realize what I don't like and what's happening with it, it's a lot easier to let that thought go because it's like it's not me. It's just what I think I should be doing, but there's no set way to be doing things. Or for most things, besides school, there's not really one set way to do one thing, and I can go about it my own way, and that just makes it a lot easier. Um, and I just learn from the past, and I just let remind him of that thought. And anytime a similar situation pops up, I remember how I acted in the past and how I didn't like that, and I learn from it and I move on. Um, and that's kind of been something I've been working really hard towards these past couple of weeks, and just like when there's days where I just don't do anything because it's summer vacation and it's like, oh, I should be doing something, I should be moving around, and I can compare myself to other people. But I haven't grown up the same way as other people. I haven't, sorry, there's like a box here, I just want to move. I haven't had the same experiences as other people, and other people haven't had the same experiences as me. So I'm just assuming that what I'm doing is wrong, and I just keep trying to learn, and I still learn every day, and I just keep trying my hardest to learn as much as I can, because I feel like I always want to be improving and I always want to be changing and bettering myself, so that when hard times come, I'm better equipped at handling those situations. And now that I've got that over with, I want to get into the main focus of this podcast. The week that I was stopped uploading, or when the last video should have came out, I was there was a lot of buzz around SpaceX, and what got me curious about it is what does it mean when SpaceX is going public, and what does this entail, and like what are the problems and risks that involve? And I specifically wanted to focus on what it means for a stock to go public or for a company to go public. And in this video, I wanted to share what this means, and I wanted to share the risks that are involved with buying a stock or shares that just turn public, and what is an IPO, and just more general information about when it comes to stocks and just the whole process. In the past, I've shared how stocks are valued, and when you search up a company or an index like the Dow or the NASDAQ, or for example, you search up like Apple stock or Intel stock, I was curious where that value comes from, or I shared where that value comes from. But now I want to share how a company goes public and what it means, what is an IPO. And the first thing that I want to share is when a stock turns public, it is called an IPO. And you'll hear me talk about this later on, but basically an IPO stands for an initial public offering. And this basically means when a private company first sells shares to the public. And this is known as going public. Another way to think about an IPO is a company shifting from a private company, basically that they don't have to, it's just in-house. It's the people in those buildings that are working at that said company. That's their only responsibility. And an IPO is when a company shifts from being private to becoming a public company that anyone can, or companies that anyone can be a part of. And or this means that companies are letting the public be able to own a percentage of the company. As well, in some, when people are offered jobs and they get things along like getting pay and benefits such as retirement funds, health insurance. Some companies sometimes they offer stock benefits, meaning that they get stocks or shares of the company they work for. And as far as I know, when you leave the job, or say worst case scenario, you get fired, you still get to keep those stocks. And now that I got like explain like the gist of what it means for a company to go public, I want to share why or how a company might start this process. And also another thing I forgot to mention, a company that decides to go public or allow IP allows it to be traded, it means that they are, before they become public, the shares that they own in the company are all owned by the people that work in the business. So like say the owner of the company, or like they own the company all in their entirety. They own 100% of the shares, or the board members, or the higher ups, like top management professions, they all work and own the company, or not really own the company, just basically the owners and the people that originally started the company when they were funding for it. Those are the original people that own the company. And when the becomes public, people are allowed to buy a certain amount of shares, and that's how companies can change ownerships and all these other things. And now, well, first things first, I want to tell why a company might start this process. And the first thing it helps is it helps the company garner capital by letting the public buy stocks, and it brings attention to a company. For example, how SpaceX was able to get a lot of attention because of them going public for like the week that they announced it up until the IPO came out. And even now, I still feel like people are still sharing about the SpaceX IPO and all this other information. And it also helps the company liquidate, meaning that they're selling their stocks in exchange for cash, and it means that people are able to basically get money for their shares and just get money. And another reason they might do this is to pay off debts. And now I've tried my hardest to understand this and share the information that I have learned. And now I want to get into how a company can start this process of becoming public or going public and what this entails. And the first thing that a company does is start by finding an investment banker to come look at the company. And once they do this, they go through all their finances, their balance sheets, and just first checking if the company is even eligible to go public. And the way that they get investment bankers to come to their company is by just announcing it, working and or like privately telling investment bankers like I guess like JP Morgan that they want to go public. And that's how these investment bankers are aware of this. And then once that happens and the company chooses which investment banker they want to go with, that's when they go through all their finances and balance sheets and all these other things to check if the company's even eligible. As well, they go through an audit, basically checking inventory, making sure that what's reported is actually what's true. And they then file that with the SEC, or the Securities and Exchange Commission. And this is, I think it's like the Fed. It's part of the government, but still kind of an independent entity. I'm gotta be careful. I'm playing with a nail. I don't want to get tetanus. As well, once they announce that they want to go public, it generates buzz around the company, and this gets people interested in the first place to buy some of their shares. And most companies that want to turn public need to have at least an evaluation of at least $1 billion. And this means that the revenue, all these other things, just basically that the company is worth $1 billion. That's how much people would buy for that, including all the workers that they pay for, all the potential earnings that might come in, and just basically that it has a lot of value. But this is not always the case, and some companies, depending on the sector, might be able to not follow this rule and bypass it by stating that just depending on how much demand there is for that company to go public. And once this process is finished and the company gets the go-ahead to move to the next step, this is now when the company chooses an underwrite, basically who's somebody who facilitates the whole process. And this is done by an investment banker who are the underwriters, and the investment bankers send out proposals to the company. And if it sounds good to the company, then they choose one. Typically, who works on the process of an IPO is a CPA, or a certified public accountant, lawyers, and an SEC expert to make sure that they aren't doing anything wrong in their filing. And this whole team just makes sure that they don't get into legal trouble later down the line. And after they finally choose an underwriter and they like the proposal, they then start the process of filing forms. And one of the primary forms that they have to file or fill out is an S1 registration statement, which is the primary document that needs to be filed with SEC to start the process of getting a company to go public. And next, after these primary files are registered, they then move on to the next steps, which is looking at markets to see how how they can value it. They generate buzz around the IPO to see the demand, and next they find out when the IPO is to be launched and how much the stock is valued at, so how much individual share is valued at. And during this time, underwriters, which are the people doing the work to get the IPO started, can change the date that the IPO is to happen or change the price of it. once they announce that the IPO is going to even happen in the first place, they then look how people are reacting, how much demand is going to be done, and if they need more time, they add it. And after or during this process, or technically after, which would be the next step, they start the process of forming a board of directors. And this board of directors, their whole job is to be permanently a part of the company, and their job is to report audible financial and accounting information every quarter to make sure the public knows what is happening within the company. And the board is also formed to disclose all information to the public, as I just said, the SEC, the government, to make sure that they're getting taxed accordingly, everything is up to date and up to code, and making sure that they follow along with everything that's happening within the company. And this can also be seen as protection for the public to make sure that they aren't getting scammed. Then finally, once the board of directors is formed, they are allowed to release the IPO. And on the day that the IPO is released, shares are issued to the public on the day of the IPO, basically meaning that and this may be wrong, but from what I understand, the amount of shares are decided on the day of the IPO, and I'm not entirely too sure how that works, but basically just responding to markets, and it's probably a whole technical thing that I'm not too well equipped to share. But the next thing is capital from the primary issuance of shares is given as cash to people that are part of the company. And this is reported on, or no, sorry. Let's take a step back. Basically, the company, when people are buying the shares, they get to, they get the revenue that is coming in from the company gets the revenue coming in from people buying the shares, and that revenue is reported as cash on the balance sheets and is reported as stockholders' equity on the balance sheet. And the next thing is a direct quote, because I felt that's really important, from Investopedia, and it directly states that the balance sheet shares value becomes dependent on the company's stockholder equity per share valuation comprehensively. And this means that the individual share price, like when you see like Apple stock, you'll see like $200 or something like that, and this becomes a dependent on the company's stockholders to make sure that the shares valued are accurate to what is happening. And even though it might seem brief, but this is basically how this is kind of like the gist of how a company gets an IPO. And it's just a very lengthy process. And additionally, underwriters, who are the investment bankers who basically wrote the agreements for the company to make sure that everything is up to date and all these other information, they may get a time period where they can buy shares after the IPO date. And this is set for them where they're just shares that are set aside. I'm pretty sure that they initially get shares, but say later down the line, the company actually is doing well, they get a set period where they can buy shares even after the IPO date. I would say that's it. I don't know. It feels. I don't know how to feel about that. Those underwriters did do a lot of work when it came to getting even the IPO process started. And I guess actually, no, I think that's fair because they have to spend their own money to even buy these shares, even after they got the original shares. So I feel like that's kind of balanced. And what makes IPOs kind of Another thing about IPOs is some investors may be subjected to periods where they cannot talk about anything related to the company or the shares that they have, and this is considered a quiet period, basically where they, yeah, as I said, just can't share any information, because it might be seen as a conflict of interest. People might be saying that there's a lot of buzz around it, and people end up trusting these investors, these original investors, and turns out it's just a whole sham, and things just aren't aren't um, aren't as accurate as they've been reported. Like, for example, in the 2000s, the dot-com era, a whole bunch of companies were going public, and when this was happening, most of these companies weren't making any profit. And before the dot-com era, there was a whole bunch of companies constantly going public, but once it was revealed that these companies weren't actually having the capital or the revenue or the valuation that was being reported, and these companies actually weren't doing anything productive, and then the stock market crashed. And as time passed, that's why this evaluation of $1 billion started to become the norm, because it's ordered to protect consumers and just even the whole markets, because that stock market crash resulted in a catastrophic event in the US that many people weren't equipped to handle. And now, the next thing I want to get into is what are some disadvantages of going public. First, IPOs are really expensive. With hiring lawyers, underwriters, filing forms, the whole process takes a lot of money, and the company has to pay for it. And so that's another thing why people don't always go public, because that whole process, it just takes a lot of effort, and it just may distract the company. As and another thing is that it distracts the company, because not only they have to go through that whole process of underwriters, which it takes away from the company, it also distracts the company because they might not want to focus on innovations and what's going to happen next for the company. They rather focus on their shares, which will ruin the momentum the company originally had to be even able to get in the spot of getting an IPO. And another problem is that companies have to regularly disclose information, and with this may allow competitors to copy the strategy of the company, reducing the edge that this company has. And overall, IPOs are really risky, and they might not always give the return that people expect them to give, and they widely vary. And the next thing is, as well, or the final thing that I want to talk about is one of the biggest risks with an IPO, and why some may say that the SpaceX IPO is a rug pull, and this is because of what is known as a lockup period. With most cases of an IPO, if you follow the charts of the company from the day that the stocks announced to a couple months later, you may notice that in a couple of months after the IPO is released, stock price may drastically decrease, and this is because the lockup period may be over. And basically, a rug pull is where, I would say it's more common with meme coins. For example, like, say a lot of people are telling one person, or they're telling the public to buy the stock, and before they tell them to buy the stock, the person buys that stock at a really low price, and say it's, for most meme coins, it's honestly like cents on the dollar or something, or just like one share is like pennies worth. And so they buy a lot of these like crypto stocks, then they announce to the public, and once they see that a lot of people are buying the stock, it shoots up the value. And that person that originally bought when there was a whole bunch of, it was worth nothing, their value shoots up. And say they had like 1 cent and they bought, the original price per share was 1 cent, and then it shoots up to like some crazy, I would say crazy number, which is like $10 or $15, even more, and it just shoots up. And then once it's at the top, they sell all their shares, and the valuation that I had just drastically drops. And that's what people are saying with SpaceX because of lockup periods. With most cases, or basically a lockup period is when underwriters make sure that company insiders, or basically people that have stock before, um, that are part of the company, they sign a legally binding document that makes sure that they can't sell their shares for a set amount of time. And this can be from anywhere from 90 days to 24 months. And once there's once this time period's over, there's a rush of people from the inside of the company rushing to sell their shares, and this leads to the stocks receiving significant pressure that can lead to a serious downturn in the company. And with StockX, a lot of people are saying that it's overvalued and it's not actually worth what it's doing. And when a lot of people are buying the StockX share, they are overvaluing the company. They're making sure that like they're making sure that the price goes up. And when a whole bunch of people are buying it and they're buying like 1 or 2 shares, and say it shoots up like $50, that's just not worth it. Because in the eyes of a person that bought some of the shares, it may seem like it actually worked, and they're actually like they actually did something and they actually made money, and then it drives up more valuation, and then it drives the valuation, the stock price or the share price of a company even further up, and they're still believing in it. And then once this lockup period's over, that's when the investors who hold large amounts of shares that are like 50 or however many they own, and once they finally sell this, they are making a lot of money. And then the people that originally bought the stocks, they then basically lost out on all their money, because what was, say they bought it at like, I haven't looked at exactly how much it's worth, but say SpaceX is worth like $175 per share, and one person buys 2 shares, and then it shoots up to like $200, and they're very happy, so they keep their money in. And then that day when the lockup period's over, then the people that own large amounts of shares that never had to put in any money, they then sell all that money, and the original investors who bought on the day of the IPO, that then shoots down to like some crazy number, like it shoots down to $100, and then that person lost like $130, or something like that, or $135 if they bought 2 shares. And it's just a whole process that there's a lot of risk that entails, and it's honestly safer for new investors and people that have don't know much information about IPOs and what it entails to buy ETFs. Basically, ETFs are exchange trade. I don't know exactly what ETFs stand for, but basically they track indexes, and indexes, they're very safe for investors to invest in, because it's been proven that no matter what, that these indexes are always rising, and that it's just the safest option, it's less risky. But for those who are well-known investors and have a lot of capital to be able to invest into these large IPOs, it's a lot riskier, but there's a lot more reward. And I think a lot of times that people don't really understand it. And so they see that a whole bunch of people are buying in, and they, it's just human nature. They don't want to miss out, especially in our society where people value money a lot. So they want um, to get money fast, but people don't understand the work that has to be put into understanding the full risk and what they're willing to risk when it comes to an IPO. So that's basically what I learned from an IPO and the whole process when it comes to what an IPO is. And I just want to say thank you, and please continue to watch and support. As well, I will say that it's looking like I might not upload this week, but um, there is a chance that I might upload just because there might be things going on that I find important, and I just want to share that with you guys or whoever watches these things. So I want to say thank you, and please continue to watch and support. Goodbye.